JKLive has a sponsor this week, the KCB Group. That's right, be the 100th shopper to tap to pay for shopping with 1,000 shillings or more with your KCB Visa card at select outlets and get rewarded with 1,000 shillings loaded to your phone. Now, next time you're going shopping, grab your KCB Visa card, tap to pay and be rewarded. Use the KCB Visa card and just tap, tap, tap and go. It is safe, it is free, it is fast, it is secure. Way to pay. So next time you're going shopping, tap, 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 tap. Hapo sawa. KCB Bank. Go ahead. I'm gonna just go ahead to the screens where we find arguably the most dynamic duo in politics. Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Gentlemen, once again, thanks for your time. Senator Sakaja, let me start with you. This revenue allocation, this was a big headache. In fact, when we were chatting earlier, you called it the night of the long knives. Tell us about that.
It was more like the 2 months of the long knives. Such a difficult process, a lot of intrigues, a lot of drama, but fortunately, and I think all of that is water under the bridge, fortunately we were able to get a winning formula, which is what we have. And if you have time, Jeff, I'll show you where it all started.
Okay. Go on.
Because, of course, the committee had brought a report, which was, it seemed a bit divisive because counties were losing. And so a number of us, because of the friction in the Senate, we were, asked, actually myself and Senator Mutula were tasked with trying to find a winning formula where we have no losses. And I will just show you on my whiteboard. I don't know if the camera can pan, because this is a piece of history.
Oh.
Yeah. Now, I'm the teacher now. This is what we wrote down. And there's a signature Mutula is supposed to come sign. We said why the equitable share is A plus B. A is what counties have gotten before. Let no county get less from the 316.5 billion. And then once we go above it, then use the share to give others to gain. Because rights are never diminished, rights increase. And that was where there was contention. The voting stopped so many times. But finally, this is what we ended up with. And the president gave us some more money, 370 billion Kenya shillings. So it's a win for the country.
My goodness, no wonder I was so horrible in algebra. I have no idea what you just said, but there are people who understood. Senator
Mutula was in charge of English, I was in charge of the maths.
Okay. Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr., did you understand that stuff? Did you get that?
Yeah, of course I did, because it was drafted in my presence while Senator Sakaja and I were tasked by the minority and majority leader to look for a better formula. But the most interesting thing about what Sakaja has just demonstrated on his whiteboard, which is historical, which we need to sign and put in the the Parliament Museum, was that immediately after coming up with what would be a winning formula, the opposition is when Sakaja was arrested, the opposition of this became tenfold. But eventually, in the formula that we agreed, the principle that no county should lose either at 316 or at 370 is what eventually was applied. And that is to say that in the event that you even don't get 370, no county is going to lose along the way. If you get to 370, counties still gain proportionately. So everybody wins. There are no losers. Nobody feels as if they are half a Kenyan. No region feels as if they have lagged behind. But the principle that we were right to say that the problem we were having is that we were splitting such a small cake that is like many children trying to quarrel in a family. And therefore the solution was getting additional resources. It also explains that, and you can imagine, Jeff, that Tharaka Nithi at 370 billion, that's 50 billion more. Tharaka Nithi only gets 249 million odd. And Nairobi, with an extra 53 billion, gets 3 billion. Out of the 50, Nairobi gets 3 billion. Because the principle then was that there's no way you can have the city of Nairobi, as small as it is, with such a high population, getting 100 million shillings And counties that are possibly a small little roundabout in Makueni getting 750 million or a billion shillings, it is disproportionate. There was no logic or economic sense to the formula that had been proposed. And I must say this, because now it's a matter of record, that because I sit in the finance committee, I was the first to say that this formula will not fly. I was rebuffed in the committee, and I stood on the floor and said this formula will not fly, and it didn't fly. It could not fly. And eventually, I believe that after the additional resources, it was easy now for members of the Senate to go back to their counties and say, out of these resources, you're not going to lose anything, and you're going to get an additional resources when we reach 270.
Okay.
So that's the win-win formula we are talking about, that you don't lose resources, and even if you get a shilling more, it's a win-win formula.
Senator Sakaja, I see you nodding. Yeah, I see you nodding. Go on.
Some things need to be debunked, Jeff, and I'm glad Senator Mutula, lawyers are not generally good with maths, but he seemed to get it, and he helped us express it properly in the legal language. Jeff, I think some things need to be debunked because a lot of politics came to play, which is unnecessary. Number one, there was never a one man, one shilling formula in the Senate. It was never there. And so those who are saying that there was a group called Team Kenya that was against one man, one shilling were lying. Because one man, one shilling presupposes that you're looking at population and some per capita equity across the country, and you're dividing the population of a county as a proportion of the whole country. Meaning, Nairobi, with the biggest population of 4.3 million people, should have been getting, at 316 billion, Nairobi should have been getting 30 billion shillings. And I said, if there was such a formula, I would definitely support it. But what was Nairobi getting? Nairobi was getting 100 million shillings. 100 million shillings is 0.6% of our budgetary allocation. In fact, it's 0.6% of what we get from shareable revenue. And I said, no. In Nairobi, we actually have the deepest levels of poverty. We have the highest population. If you bring a formula where Nairobi is not even in the top 20 gainers, Nairobi was number 28 in its gainers, I would not accept that as senator for Nairobi. And look at the formula we have now. Nairobi is now getting, from 100 million, Nairobi is getting 3.3 billion. Jeff, people went out, they printed banners. They said, Sakaja hates Nairobi, I want the people to keep living in squalor. But how it would be a disservice as somebody who understands the math to actually accept a formula of voodoo variables, because that's what it was. Nairobi now has gotten 3.3 billion extra. We're at 19 billion, and there's no county that is losing. Number two, there was no CRA formula. The CRA brought a proposal, and the proposal of CRA was analyzed, and the committee changed the variables. So what we were looking at were two different formulas. One that the committee had proposed, where 18 counties were losing. You're telling 18 counties in this country that for others to gain, you must get less than what you got. Some counties were losing up to 30% of their budget in one fell swoop. We said that cannot be, because you'd have job losses, you'd have to cut development, and you would just completely distort the budgeting in those counties. What we have now, and I thank the president for increasing the money, is a formula that unites this country, because the language of winners versus losers ended. And it was a lot of pressure. And I want to thank the 6 senators whose counties had been gaining but stood with the rest of the country, because when it comes to certain things, we must see ourselves not as Kenya A and Kenya B, but as one indivisible country. Devolution is not about counties competing with each other, stealing from each other, taking away from each other, but it's about us all moving forward together. Some people were and Jeff, it's very unfortunate, because this was a fundamental point of departure, philosophical. Some people did not want to see some counties getting money. And you said, why does it pain you so much to see Nyamira getting money, to see the coast getting money, to see Northeastern getting money? Yet some of these places for the last 50 years, Jeff, have seen zero development. 100 million that was being enticed with in Nairobi. Just the other day we had a problem in Kasarani, and I was able to go to the national government, and I got 350 million from the national government to do 3 kilometers of a road, which is going on, and I'm glad the progress is good. The Senate of Mandera may not be able to see a national government project in his county of that amount of money. We have a 67 billion road in Nairobi. You will not see that in Nyamira. You will not see that in Coast. So we said, for this money that is supposed to help our counties come ahead, we stand as one indivisible country despite all the pressure, despite the threats, despite everything that happened, which again I'm saying is all under the bridge because it's politics. You know, some people were arrested, others were, you know, said their threats to their lives. There was a drama. It was, you know, Kenyans used to switch on the Senate. It's like you're watching, you know, a movie every Monday. But it took a toll on very many of us, and I'm glad we were able to stand firm and stand together and got a unanimous vote, 41-0.
Gentlemen, I'm glad you're being honest, and we're all being honest at this point, because Senator Mutula Kilonzo, if I could ask you this, Senator Sakaja referred to politics at play. And let's face it, you could be seeking the gubernatorial seat in Makueni come 2022. I mean, it's obvious. It's not rocket science. So they're saying, you know, there was politics at play. You're looking to see if you can get more cash for your county so that you can run for governor. True or false?
I mean, the word could be should be underlined and caps, because it could be, because I've not declared an intention to vie as a governor of Makueni. But be it as it may, that in fact I was called by one of your stations, radio stations, and they said, and I must mention it's in Oro, by Jeff Koinange, and they suggested that Sakaja and I had been bribed, others had been bribed to refuse the formula. But you know, Jeff, it must be understood. When Makueni loses 432 million, Machakos gains 300 million and Kitui loses 500. It's not the same thing as Kiambu losing 100 or Nairobi losing 100. We are a rural county. We do not have the sort of what we call on-source revenue that is in Kiambu or is in Narok or is in Nairobi. To lose 400 million is easily cutting the legs of Makueni County government. All they would have done is dismiss the doctors or say there are no there's no medicine in the hospitals. I mean, going by the fact that they were ready to shut down hospitals, it tells you that had we allowed 18 counties to lose, all governors needed to do is dismiss doctors, dismiss workers, and then say, go and ask the senator.
Yeah.
But it is the logic and the voodoo, what Sakaja says, voodoonomics, the voodoo of taking away money from Kitui and from Makueni to give it to Machakos is what I call in English robbing Peter to pay Paul. It's ridiculous. It doesn't make sense. Now, for somebody to go and say, by the way, I have gained 1.1 billion because Makueni has lost and Kitui has lost and Mandera has lost, is also voodoonomics. It doesn't also make sense. And because we were arguing about a kitty, which we received and was the same as last year, the principle, whether I am elected or not, the principle is that if counties, what we call a baseline, and you remember I sat with Sakaja, we had exchanged harsh words with members of the National Assembly. In fact, you remember that Mheshimiwa John Badi said I walked out on them because I did. Because to agree to have a baseline below the previous year is to diminish counties. And therefore, we have on principle agreed as follows. Since 2013, counties will not receive a sum less than what they received the previous year, as a principle, and that we call that a baseline protected under Article 219. If then that is a baseline, why would you allow then a county to receive less? There are basic principles. There are people who want to vie, and they will vie. Some will win, some will lose. But think about it. Senator Kabaka from Machakos was vilified by his governor because he refused to take 300 million in the previous formula. And Senator Kabaka, while going to win in our region, decided to refuse. In the end, Senator Kabaka in Machakos County have now 1.4 billion. Who is laughing? Jeff. Even if he wanted to be a governor, or he wanted to be whatever it is he wanted to be in Machakos, the people who are gaining, like Kakamega County, and their governor who has been fighting us for reasons best known to himself, Kakamega was gaining less than $1 billion or at 998 million, and now they're at 1.9.
Yes.
Jeff Koinange, that was a fight worth hanging around. There are counties, more than counties, Sakaja will confirm. I don't have the figures now. I was supposed to have the spreadsheet that the 12 of us signed and I framed. To over 12 counties are getting an additional $1 billion shillings.
24.
24.
Over 24.
Senator Sakaja.
An extra 1 billion shillings out of the 53.
Go on, Senator Sakaja.
We cannot reduce
counties
this
are getting
to
more than $1 billion.
Yes. So you can't reduce this to a question of who wants to be a governor, who wants to be a senator, who wants to be a president, who wants to be an MCA. It's a very simplistic argument that I had, and particularly from politicians and naysayers. But the minute we finished, everybody went quiet. I'm surprised. They didn't turn around and say we were right all along.
Yeah.
All the tweeters disappeared. The banners against Sakaja disappeared. The governors went into holiday or they went into halls. I don't understand. So to gauge whether we were right or wrong in the process of making sure that counties get their proportionate allocation, I can't quarrel with Senator Sakaja, from whom we drafted what we call the Sakaja formula, the two of us. I get 700 extra million, he gets 3 billion. If I had an opportunity, I would ask him to give me 300 of his 3.3 so that I have 1 billion. But I cannot justify it economically or mathematically or logically. I can only use that voodoonomics that was in the Senate to ask him, wait, bro, so you give me 300 million, that sort of thing. So Jeff, it must be understood that that argument is simplistic.
Okay, Senator Sakaja. Senator Sakaja, go on.
And the less you talk about it, the better.
Okay.
Jeff, the politics we're talking about was people saying, number one, that we are pandering to a certain political force for 2022, and nothing could be further from the truth. Jeff, you know Mutula's party leader is a presidential candidate. Malala has a different party leader. Senator Ledamo Lekina, and I thank him for standing strong together with Malala and Langat. Senator Murkomen, myself, we have a different political persuasion when it comes to 2022. But people are trying to use this. Jeff, women were being paid to record videos in Nairobi. They put banners, cartoons, bloggers, and hashtags. People were saying that I'm not the senator for Mandera, I'm the senator for Nairobi. But I know Nairobi deserves more than 3 billion, not 100 million, and we're able to get it. So I'm glad that a group of leaders in this country, and it truly rekindled and rejuvenated my spirit about what leaders are, that we can be able to withstand and defy gratification that is very temporary and myopic for the greater good of this country. There are people who will stand up today from Nyamira and talk about Makueni with a passion and believe in Makueni. There are senators from the coast who will say, even if I'm the only one who is left gaining, I will not allow Turkana to lose, because we are one country, and that is the lesson that we've learned, and that is what we were pushing for. Those economics, those variables Mutula is calling voodoonomics, the voodoo variables, were telling us that Nairobi should get 0 on agriculture. Yet in Nairobi, I have a huge population engaged in agriculture, more than even the size of other counties. If you go to the Dagoretti South, Mutwini, in Udhiru, Rudhimitu, if you go to Kasarani, in Njiru, there's a lot of agriculture that is taking place there. Livestock, all the livestock market that is coming from across the country comes to Nairobi, comes to Donyo, comes to Kiamaiko, and we've seen even the amount of money put in agriculture in Nairobi would help prevent post-harvest losses. So at least we agreed that we must move together as a country, and the governors are part of the problem. And I'm glad Mutula has mentioned it, because the Council of Governors, and really shame on them, they accepted 316.5 billion, yet they knew very well that the variables have changed, the data has changed. Some of your counties, maybe your county was number 10 in population in the previous census, and now it's number 20, they themselves would have the problems. And so they went and ran, they rushed, they accepted it. I don't know, because they've been promised regional governors or they've been promised something else, and they're the ones who put us into this problem. So then, a day after they were in State House, Jeff, they sat with the president. The president was, wise enough to say, let us increase the cake, with the former prime minister. They put it at 370. The next day, the Council of Governors announces that they're going to shut down counties. No one has a right. Those services are provided for in the Constitution. Even if you have very little money or no money, and no county has 0, because they don't even exhaust their budgets. You give the service that you can afford at that point. You cannot shut down counties. And we asked, is it that the governor, the chairman of COG, was just passing by in that meeting, or had he gone for tea? Did he not know what was discussed? And it was really shameful. And that's why the next day we followed through what we had promised, that with this increased money, 12 of us in that committee, there was no dissent, signed onto the new formula for equity. So I think it gives us lesson that going forward, we should never allow such a discussion to be so divisive that we can't look at each other when we start saying, oh, which community is gaining, which community is losing. There are people who brought a lie that this formula was supposed to be benefiting one region. It is not true. The biggest gaining counties in this formula, and the original formula actually, was the Rift Valley. After the Rift Valley, it was Western.
Yes.
After Western, it was Mount Kenya. When Sakaja and Mutula and so stand up and say that formula is wrong, we need to have more gains, they say we're anti a certain region. Yet when Mithika is supporting and when Kindiki is supporting, they're not anti. So that is the poison of the politics of the past. I, as Senator for Nairobi, I must think of all Nairobians. I must think of the poverty, and I must remember there are 43 communities in this city that must also, benefit, Jeff. So I'm glad that is all under the bridge. We've been able to debunk the voodoo variables, the notion of politics. It has nothing to do with anything else. Our political loyalties lie where they were.
Yeah.
But if people, it looks like they just want to keep pushing us into a certain corner.
Correct.
We are Kenyans. We have our rights as Kenyans. Jeff.
Let me ask Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. So this bad blood, this blame game between you all and the governors, is that still on or is it over? I mean, do you move on from here? What's the deal?
After we finish this this process, a day after their very cantankerous memo, which I called illegal and unconstitutional, issued by the Council of Governors, you've not heard them say anything. The former Prime Minister issued a statement, Mheshimiwa Raila Odinga, congratulating us for the work that we have done. I've not seen one from the Council of Governors. Why? Because even when they were writing that memo, I'm sure they were part of the politics of fighting the Senate in terms of the work that we were doing. Maybe they thought at the time that after writing such memos, which I have said have no legal value, particularly even on the paper they are written, they thought then they would put us under pressure. Unknown to them, we were meeting day and night. The previous night we were writing a memo as Senator Sakaja, Senator Wetangula, Senator Moses Kajwang, trying to put this thing together. And by the time we met the following morning, the discussions were robust and we had already finished this issue. So it's not bad blood. It's just that they don't understand who their clients are. They don't understand who their constituency is. They think that when they are in bed with government, then we are the bad guys. And this is not new, because in the last budget, when Sakaja and I were banging tables and going into meetings with Red Eye, with Mheshimiwa Duale, they were at funerals, addressing us at funerals and saying, what is wrong with these senators? We are happy with 316 billion. 0.5. Yet we were saying at 327 or 336, half of the problems that we had in the formula would not have arisen. So it doesn't surprise us, because they look at us as their enemies, as their competitors. 26 of them are on their second term. We are not competing with them to become presidents or regional governors or whatever it is they want to become. And therefore, it's that lack of understanding and that lack of cohesion in the institutions. It's the same thing we are going to discuss about the judiciary and the Chief Justice. It's just lack of understanding that we are serving the same person, doing the duties for the same Kenyan. The Kenyan who elected me and the Kenyan who the Chief Justice or the Commission of Revenue Authority is serving, or the Council of Governors, is not any different. We are serving the same people.
Yeah.
That understanding, I think at some point, maybe before Jesus comes, we are going to resolve it. But as far as I'm concerned, as I'm concerned, in terms of the national government, the county governments, the Senate, we are not pulling at different things. It's not like the 3 billion that was allocated to Nairobi is going to go specifically to Sakaja. He might not even get a cup of tea in the governor's office. In my case, I may not even get an envelope.
Okay.
But the fact is that I know that Mama Mudeu and Mama Mukali in Makueni will not suffer for lack of services arising out of lack of resources.
All right, gentlemen, I get you.
This debate,
I get you,
even
Senator.
on the
Yes. I get you. Real quick, before we take a break, is there a one-word answer for this question, Senator Sakaja? To dissolve or not to dissolve Bunge? Is there a one-word answer for that? Yes or no?
No.
Senator Mutula?
big no.
Those are 3 words.
A big no.
It's called embellishing.
All right, let's take a break, come back, and you all tell me why no. Obviously, we don't have the money with the budget. I mean, it's ridiculous. 2 years to an election. I mean, there's all kinds of formulas. But let's come back and discuss that. And also, there's some presidential candidates out there, guys. I'd like to discuss if you don't mind, huh? Because, you know, I just came back from Rwanda, you all know. And you know how that place has developed. I'm sure you guys have been there. You know how it's developed. What do we need? Who's that person we need? And I'll throw some names at you, and you just answer back. How's that?
Okay.
That is a trick question. Trick question.
It's not a trick question.
No comment is an answer as well.
Exactly. Oh, yeah. Arguably the most dynamic duo in politics. Nairobi Senator Johnson Sakaja, Makueni Senator Mutula Kilonzo Jr. Right here on Jeff Koinange Live. Keep tweeting at Koinange Jeff at Citizen TV Kenya. The hashtag JKLive. JKLive. Powered by KCB Bank. KCB, go ahead. We'll be back in a moment.